Hello and welcome back to Vinyl Friday, where I go through my records in alphabetical order like a big nerd and talk about why I love them. Today is a Rubber Soul kind of day. Indeed, it's the last Rubber Soul kind of day for side 1 of the album. That means that we're listening to this song. Michelle! Some would argue that this was Paul McCartney's prettiest song. Mind you, I think you could probably find anyone to argue that any of Paul McCartney's songs are his prettiest song. Except maybe Press. Yeah, except maybe Press. I have a few thoughts about this song. It's a song that's built around a very interesting guitar part, but it has such a masterful melody. Paul McCartney really is the melody master. This is, of course, the guitar part I'm talking about. As for the melody, I was having a chat with a customer of mine yesterday, and she's this very interesting, kind of eccentric character. She is a songwriter, and she used to sing backing vocals for Van Morrison and Cat Stevens. Very cool. She was critiquing some of my music, as you do. It was this song in particular, actually. Subtle plug! A point that she was making is that the melody should be the foundation of the song. Her point was that you should be able to walk into the woods and sing a melody, and it should stand on its own without any of the instrumentation, without any of the arrangement. It's just you and the damn trees. While that is one philosophy of songwriting, of many that we can get into on a different day, I think that this song is a brilliant illustration of that point. Because if you only listened to the melody of Michelle, it would still be incredible. It very clearly outlines what all of the chords are. It just sounds incredibly pretty while it's doing that. And that can be quite difficult to do from a songwriting perspective. If you're focused on outlining the chords or constructing your melody around the chords, you can sometimes lose sight of how to make it appealing to listen to as well. Clearly that's not a problem that Sir Paul McCartney has, which would explain his extremely illustrious career. I also really love how the backing vocals are just straight ooze pretty much throughout the song. It gives it a sort of pad texture, I guess. I'm talking about synths in particular. Here are some examples of some pads. That kind of a textural layer. It also tracks with the bass part, which we'll get into a little bit more later. The part that goes ooh. I'll show you what the bass actually. Let's get into it right now. The vocals are going while the bass line is going. Together they harmonize like this. So it harmonizes. I think that's a nice subtle little thing, because a lot of people wouldn't necessarily notice that that's what the bass is doing, just that there's this lovely little step up that's happening in the song, and just building the energy of the thing right up until everyone drops out. Here we go. All what you need to me until I do. And the bass goes from a busy walking bass line to very sparse notes. I really feel like this is the Beatles' foray into jazz. I don't even think it was an intentional foray. I know that the jazz purists among us may have the urge to say, well, this isn't real jazz, this is pop's best imitation. To those of you thinking that, I ask you to resist that urge, because we're not holding up Michelle against the pantheon of jazz greats. We're comparing it to rock and roll music, and in that context, this is very jazzy music. I'll show you this wonderful walking bass line in support of my thesis. I need to make you see all what you mean to me. great rock and roll distortion happening. So I think the walking bass line is one of the elements that makes it quite jazzy. And then the chords. If I can entice her, I'll get the guitar correspondent to serenade us all later. In the meantime, the bass is busy, it's doing a walking bass line, it's stepping up, the vocals are stepping up, and then everything just drops out. The bass plays like a couple of solitary notes. There are no backing vocals, it's just Paul and the guitar and a little tiny bit of what the bass is doing. This is another song where the other instruments are making room for this beautiful melody and its beautiful accompanying chords. Or the other way around, depending on your songwriting approach. I guess what I'm trying to say is that Ringo is making room for everyone else. His part is so simple. I think he's just going boom, cha, boom, ba-cha, boom, cha, boom, ba-cha. That's how you say Ringo's part. And drum. I speak native drum. Like, he's not even hitting the snare, it's just a rim shot. This is a rim shot. I want a rim shot. I remember reading once, I cannot find where it was, so if you can back this up, please let me know, that this is a set of chords that Paul put together quite early on, and they used to go to parties and he'd sit in the corner with a guitar and he would play these chords and look moody and pretend to be French to pull the girls. And I would imagine it worked. It's a very romantic song and, you know, he was a pretty Beatle. Bonsoir, ma chérie. Listen to my beautiful chords. Oui, oui. I would like to talk about this beautiful, warm, buttery electric guitar tone that we're getting during the solos, which is really just the same thing in the middle of the song and then again at the end. It's not very trebly, it's a nice, warm... I don't know how best to describe it, which is ironic given that this is a show where I describe stuff that I like, but the best way that I have to think about it is that that solo to me sounds like browned butter tastes. Take from that what you will. One more little point that I really enjoy about this song. Paul's vocal overshoots on the last want. So instead of singing, want you, he sings like, want you. It's sort of like his voice kind of gets away from him a little bit. I enjoy that. I think it's humanizing as a singer-songwriter. It's nice to have your idols knocked off their pedestal a little bit every now and then. Here it is. I want you, I want you, I want you. Which brings me to my last point. Paul's vocal delivery on this song is just gorgeous. He has such a sweet voice. The song is a great example of how incredibly versatile his voice was, because he could do this. I love you, I love you, I love you. But then he could also turn around and do Helter Skelter. I mean, how many other singers do we have who have that breadth of human emotion in their singing abilities? It's just incredible. 10 out of 10 to Paul for not just the writing of this song, although John Lennon apparently, according to John Lennon, did contribute the I love you, I love you, I love you, which was influenced by some Nina Simone that he had been listening to. Specifically, I Put a Spell on You. Yeah, so I think just Paul does a beautiful job on this one. Before we close out, I would like to say that I'm gonna take a little breather from Rubber Soul, partly so that we have some time to digest side one, but also because we're about to enter the David Crosby verse. That means that we're about to cover some of my all-time favorite albums. That's not to say that this isn't one of my all-time favorite albums, because it is, but I would like to do a bit of a deep dive into some of the work that we have coming up. So obviously I will come back to side B in a couple of weeks. And in fact, I'm really excited about side B because just privately, except it's not, it's super public. I say super, but you know, all 200 of you will hear this. I actually think that side B is the better side to Rubber Soul. Actually, I'm really curious to know what you all think about the track order on this album. Is side A the stronger side? Is side B the stronger side? Is it a nice mix? Are they about evenly matched? What are your personal takes on the way that this album pans out for the listener? Cool, that's everything from me. If you would like to support any of the stuff that I do, be it the art, the Vinyl Friday, the songwriting, the music videos, the puppet making, I'll leave a link in the description to my Buy Me a Coffee page where you're welcome to make a donation if you feel like it. Don't feel obliged. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you here next week. Have a great weekend! Bonsoir, ma chérie. Listen to my beautiful chords. That is not one of my beautiful chords.